So joining me here on set, former Wisconsin Republican Congressman Sean Duffy, co-host of The Bottom Line on Fox Business, and Marc Thiessen, former chief speechwriter for President George W. Bush, American Enterprise Institute senior fellow, and a Fox News contributor. Gentlemen, thank you. This is, as I said, it's disturbing on a lot of levels. Is this given what we know right now, Marc, is this a treasonous crime?
It is. It's treason. And look, Jennifer Griffin made the point that, after 9/11, we loosened access to intelligence. I had a top secret security clearance after 9/11 in the Pentagon and the White House. And I can tell you the goal was not to give 21-year-olds access to finished CIA product that reveals sources and methods. The goal was to break down the walls between the intelligence community and the FBI because they weren't talking to each other. No one was talking about spreading intelligence this far and wide. And the idea that a 21-year-old kid can expose sources and methods of how we spy or how we have penetrated the Chinese People Liberation Army, because apparently we've exposed the fact that that we know they have a new hypersonic missile that can reach the United States. That they exposed our penetration of the Russian Defense Ministry that could affect the war in Ukraine. I mean, the incompetence is stunning. And it wasn't unlike Edward Snowden and Chelsea Manning. It wasn't ideological. It was some kid trying to show off to his friends in a gaming chat room and has literally affected global national security by doing so. How this happens is just beyond me.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big questions. There's the micro question here and the macro question here. The macro question is, as Marc says, there were pieces of intelligence here that were talking about the tensions that exist between the Wagner Group and the head of the Russian military, assessments about how successful, based on all of our calculations, Ukraine could potentially be in this spring offensive. I mean, these are very foundational understandings of what's going on in the world that are not shared outside of this environment, right? And so what really strikes me, is this young man. I think technology is advancing faster than a lot of the old folks at the Pentagon can keep up. That's what I think, just watching this, right? And I wonder how many other young people have the ability to circumvent this. I don't know, Sean, if he was able to get into a system and read what was there. They said that he was transcribing the stuff initially. Then he started taking pictures of it and then sharing the pictures with them because transcribing it all got a little cumbersome.
But roll back for a second. We spent $800 billion a year to the Pentagon. You'd expect they have missiles and ships and planes, but also they have advanced technology to make sure they keep our intelligence safe. $800 billion a year. And here you have this kind of leak. And you made this point. I think the American people are shocked that a 21-year-old guardsman can get access to this information. If a guardsman can get access, can't the Russians, can't the Chinese? Who else can get access? And so, yes, I think we hold the guardsman accountable. He accessed the information. I don't think it was for ideological reasons. However, it has the same impact in undermining our credibility with our allies. But what general is going to lose their job? Which general is at fault for national security to make sure you can't breach into the Pentagon and get this highly classified information? And if the Biden
when it's out there for 6 to 8 months, you don't notice?
Where's the FBI? Where's the DOJ? Exactly. The problem with this administration is no one is held accountable. Someone has to lose their job. I mean, again, this guy should go to prison. But we have real problems in the Pentagon, and I don't think the administration wants to look inside to go, who is the problem? Who else do we have to bring in to make sure our secrets are safe?
The president's in Ireland. He spoke to Parliament today. What would you expect? You're a former speechwriter at the White House. If you were advising this president and all of this is coming down, what would you say to him about how to address it today?
Well, first of all, I would look at what has been exposed and say, fix that. Like the fact that we've exposed the fact that they don't think that the Ukrainian offensive is going to work. Well, that's because they're not providing them the weapons for it to work. Expose the fact that that Egypt was trying to sell artillery to the Russians. Well, maybe we should put some consequences on that. So first thing is, let's fix the problems that this is exposed that we all didn't know was happening, but he did. That his administration did there. I mean, this has just lifted up a rock, and we're seeing some of the just incompetence that's happening in this administration. In terms of this leak, take it seriously. He said today, it's not that big a deal. What is he talking about? We've exposed sources and methods of how we penetrated the Russian Ministry of Defense and the Chinese People's Liberation Army. It's a very big, to quote Joe Biden, it's a big effing deal. Say that it's a big deal. Say that I'm going to get to the bottom of this. I'm going to hold people accountable.
There's a lot of in the messaging that we're hearing from the White House, Sean. There's a lot of sort of downplaying. Like, okay, everybody, no, it's not a big deal. This isn't a big deal either. They're shooting down our drone. Not a big deal. Balloon flying over our airspace. Not a big deal. This is also not a big deal. I mean, at some point, I feel almost like the whole apparatus is kind of COVID chilled out, we're only back at work 3 days a week. We're not really keeping a close eye on what's going on. Pretty soon, everybody will be back to, full throttle. When?
And here's the problem with that. So if Joe Biden undermines how serious this really is, which we all agree it is incredibly serious, all of a sudden the Congress is going to step up. Republicans are going to engage, and they're going to go to war with Joe Biden. Well, I think that's horrible for the country. I think this is a bipartisan moment where Joe Biden says this is serious. Republicans go, yes, Mr. President, it's serious. Let's work together, Republican and Democrat, to make sure this never happens again. This is not political. This isn't partisan. But it will become partisan if Joe Biden minimizes the serious nature of it. And again, I think to the point if Joe Biden said, listen, we got real problems. I'm not a tech guy, but I'm going to find out what went wrong, and this will never happen again. And Republicans, help me out.
Exactly. Precisely.
Exactly.
I mean, you want to hear from the top. Look, this is treason. We're going to pursue this through the Justice Department. But if it is what it appears to be, it's treason. If this young man does not face the appropriate penalty, what is to dissuade anyone else who can find their way around a computer? And let me tell you, I guarantee you there are many of this young man.
They got to be held accountable, too. Who hired this guy? Who gave this guy access to this intelligence? Who up the chain of command? There has to be accountability, or else it's never going to get fixed.
Yeah, that was one of the questions in the Pentagon briefing. What happens up the chain of command? Because the captain of the ship is the leader in these environments, right? Yeah. So if people under you are putting American secrets at risk, there has to be accountability. And I think that it's almost like a kind of a disease that has crept across all of our apparatuses, where it's like, oh, no, nothing really matters and no one's really held accountable. And I think people are so fed up with it, Sean.
But they are. And I think that every American recognizes that mistakes happen. No one is perfect. No administration. I mean, there's thousands of people who work for Joe Biden. There will be mistakes. They can go, they can accept there was a mistake here. I take full responsibility. We'll fix it. And they really forgive. The American people are very forgiving. But when you play the other hand and go, well, it's not a big deal, everybody, and play it down. And again, the serious nature of the leaks are real. Again, that's when I think the American people get angry. They get
just
mad.
Look at last week when they had the report on Afghanistan. And they said, well, I didn't see chaos. Kirby says, I didn't see chaos. I don't know what you're talking about. There's nobody got fired over that. Nobody got fired over that. Nobody gets fired over anything in this administration.
And nobody believed John Kirby either.
And right? Exactly. I mean, Kirby should be fired for saying that. I mean, he completely destroyed his credibility, and in the process, the credibility of his administration. They lie to us all the time. The president says that no one told him to leave troops behind, which is just bald-faced lie. He downplays everything. There's no accountability for mistakes, no admissions of any mistakes. I mean, just the other day, Bill Clinton came out and said, I made a mistake by forcing Ukraine to give up its nuclear weapons. I feel responsible for this war. At least he's willing to do it. When is Joe Biden going to say, I did something wrong? I made a mistake. We're going to fix it. I'm going to take responsibility for it. They don't do it on anything.
I mean, that problem exists across a few administrations, and we've seen it happen many, many times. And I do think that it trickles down through the rest of society, right? Nobody wants to take responsibility. Everything is always somebody else's fault. I think as Americans, we have a history of, standing up and saying, I messed up on this. I need to take the heat for it, and we're going to go from there. Now, here's another question. We've talked a lot about AI recently, right? And I was saying to you before we started, now everything I look at, one of my first questions is this real? Did someone make this? Did someone create all of this intelligence? And then I'm thinking, is this coming from Russia? Is it coming from China? Is it really this young man? Or is he just the front for something that they created in this chat room thing? And the guy that we're looking at on the screen who's talking in a black silhouette, is he real? So you really start to question all of what people are capable of creating, Sean. They say, he had no connections to Russia or China. That's what the young man says. Yeah. Okay, that's a starting point. What do you think?
But I do not care. But again, the effect is the same. But I had the same thought that if the Ukraine's going to run out of missiles by May 23rd, I'm like, are we rope-a-dope in Russia? Are we baiting them into something? Is this real? Is this actually an intelligence play? Because again, you don't trust any of the information that comes out. And you're right with AI, you can't trust anything you see anymore. We were talking about the dog that you said that you saw little Snoopy before. It's like, is this real or is this fake? I don't know anymore.
I know.
Oh.
And, I mean, obviously, our job is to follow all of these leads and figure out what is substantive. I think it's very interesting that some of these organizations who are very skillful online got to this young person before the FBI did, and I think they have to answer for that too. Why don't they have these individuals who are good, working for these organizations? Maybe they ought to be working for the FBI, Mark?
Yep, maybe. And, but again, he's sharing this with a bunch of kids. I mean, one of the kids in this story, he had to get his mother's permission to talk to the Washington Post. He's that young.
My guess is that this young man was living at mom and dad's too in Massachusetts. We don't know yet. But
Mark, just one point. We'll be able to follow the case, right? We'll see that case progress. What we won't see is how other countries refuse to share information with us anymore. What is the intelligence consequence of this to America in the future as other countries look at these kind of breaches in America and say, we don't really trust you
we'll never
to
know.
Yeah, but it makes me wonder how open all of this is.
We'll see the case, but we will not see that part of the consequence of this case.
It may be that these other countries have this stuff too, because it's been online for 6 to 8 months. So maybe they weren't all that shocked when it came out, because maybe they
300 documents.
Yeah.
300. So most of them not public yet.
6 to 8 months.
I mean, have they gone on to Discord and pulled these down? And, do they have them? I mean, it's just.
You would hope so.
All right. Stay with me, guys, if you will.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.